Democrats finally had an epiphany. Usually the party knows everything. They know what you need, what you don't need. They even know things you didn't even know you needed. But for the first time in a long time, the Democrats threw up their arms in despair.
Donald Trump's approval rating was actually slightly larger than Joe Biden's was at this point. Trump was at 43%. Biden is at just 41%. So he's doing worse than Trump, who he was always saying was doing so poorly.
The question is, how solid a candidate is Joe Biden?
That's the problem. That's exactly the problem.
And
what is exactly the problem?
That we don't know how solid a candidate Joe Biden is.
We know he's not a solid candidate.
Exactly.
He is struggling. I mean,
within his own party.
It is hard to watch.
After the Russia hoax, 2 impeachments, 3 indictments, and a country bitterly divided by class and education, the New York Times experienced a temporary moment of clarity. Columnist David Brooks is asking, what if we're the bad guys here? Humility finally arrived at the New York Times, and we're not going to mock them for it. We're actually encouraged by their ability to step into someone else's shoes for once. The professional class is finding itself wondering, maybe the Texas oil worker isn't a bigot. Maybe the Ohio truck driver with a Trump bumper sticker just likes his trade policies. What if the deplorable store clerk in Arkansas is tired of being robbed? What if we're the problem? What if our snobby attitudes, our exclusive tribes, and our globalist policies are damaging the working class and turning everybody off? In the piece, David Brooks says the problem actually goes back to the 1960s, when the working class were drafted off to Vietnam to fight in a war pushed by Ivy League foreign policy elites, while the wealthy sons of the elites got deferments. That was the moment everything changed. Academic achievement determined how the social order is structured. You either went to exclusive prep schools, elite East Coast colleges or grad schools, or you didn't. The media profession, which used to be full of old crusty working class guys hustling around with a pen and paper, used to hold powerful interests accountable. But now the media profession is stuffed with upper class Americans who don't hold powerful interests accountable because they're all from the same class. They all went to the same schools, go to the same clubs. They all live in the same neighborhoods. The upper class media has aligned itself with the upper political class and the business class into one big professional class that looks down their nose at the rest of the country and tries to keep them out of the club. David Brooks says they're segregating themselves. They don't believe certain people belong in politics or in media or in any position of power in the country. That's their job. They were born into it. They were groomed for it. Living in the Boston, New York, D.C. axis, they've propped themselves up into these urban coastal power centers, and this goes for coastal California too, and they've created an economic system which keeps them and only them elevated. Their jobs and status are always safe. The policies that serve them, open borders, open China, AI, green tech, don't serve the rest of the country. In fact, their policies wreak havoc on the rest of the country. If your factory or your refinery gets shut down, you're replaceable. They're not. To them, you're just a number in the monthly unemployment report. Even during the pandemic, they thrived. There's always a hammock nearby. Brooks admitted it, quote, "Armed with all the kinds of economic, cultural, and political power, we support policies that help ourselves. Free trade makes the products we buy cheaper, and our jobs are unlikely to be moved to China. Open immigration makes our service staff cheaper, but new, less educated immigrants aren't likely to put downward pressure on our wages." There's no empathy in the professional class. They talk down to you, if they talk to you at all. Since academic credentials mean everything, they use words and phrases to show everybody how smart and politically correct they are. They make everybody else feel alienated and kind of confused. Non-binary, intersectionality, marginalized communities. What? It's like they have their own dialect, lingo to signify status. And after years of thinking they're better than you, along came Donald Trump, a billionaire who's better than all of them in all the ways they valued. He went to an Ivy League school. He owned golf courses, iconic real estate. He had beautiful women. He was a celebrity. He was a star. Sure, he was a little crude, but Hillary was at his wedding. He was accepted until he threatened their political power, until he listened to you and told the professional class of what you thought of them, until he came in, humiliated the press, the Bush and the Clinton dynasty, and the power brokers who thought opening China was a great idea. He showed the entire country that the professional class were only pretending to know what they're doing, but they were actually just a bunch of selfish, greedy, and insecure social climbers. Imagine that, a billionaire who listened to the forgotten man. Brooks says, quote, "It's easy to understand why people in less educated classes would conclude that they're under economic, political, cultural, and moral assault, and why they've rallied around Trump as their best warrior against the educated class. He understood that it's not the entrepreneurs who seem most threatening to workers, it's the professional class. Trump understood that there was great demand for a leader who would stick his thumb in our eyes on a daily basis and reject the whole epistemic regime that we rode in on. Basically, Trump's popular because he actually cares. He cares about the whole country, not just the professional class who used to run it or run it into the ground. This is why Trump's such a threat. He threatens not just their power, he threatens to invalidate their status and exalted role in America. Now, sometimes this clash of classes is ugly. We get it. But it's necessary for the United States to move forward together in the 21st century. So when Trump's attacked, the country is attacked. That's why these indictments don't have the punishing effect on the Republican Party, which has now become the party of populism, that the professional class had expected. People like Van Jones, who get it, sometimes gets it, doesn't get it here.
In some ways, this would be a normal person's nightmare and maybe a narcissist's dream, to be martyred, for his cause, for his people, to have to go and face the establishment. I'm doing this for you. Trump has been quite masterful at getting half the country now to go along with this delusion that he has that somehow he's the victim here when he's not.
Some of the greatest human beings in history have been martyrs. What if someone's a martyr, you're just supposed to abandon them? That's not how martyrdom works. These indictments have backfired, and the polls reflect it. Back in March, before any of these indictments, Trump was polling at 43 on the Real Clear Politics average in the primary. He gets hit with his first indictment, the New York Bragg indictment, and now he's up at 50. 2 months later, Trump gets hit with Mar-a-Lago doc indictments. What happens? He's up at 56. So what do you think happens now? No wonder Trump's saying, I need one more indictment to ensure my election. In the New York Times poll, he's already tied with Biden, dead even. So it kind of feels like Democrats want Trump reelected.
And maybe the more this thing becomes clear what was done, you've got to believe that rational thought will come back in the minds of some of these people. But if not, then it's going to take the overwhelming organization, just as you were talking about earlier, organizing the country at all the levels so that he cannot win that election.
Now the revenge tour. Trump's made the message clear, quote, if you go after me, I'm coming after you. This is the professional class's last stand. If Trump gets back in the White House, all of them will be discredited and knocked from their perches. This is why they're covering up the Biden scandal so vigilantly. The Biden scandal is like holding up a mirror to Washington, to every elite. All sit down at the same dinners, go to the same parties, get paid by the same companies, and whose entire family is all playing the inside game. It's been a sleazy patronage mill for an eternity. And they don't want to stop printing the money. But at the end of the day, the White House is the people's house. We choose the outcome.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.